because we've got a lot to talk about in this first couple weeks of spring training. The biggest news is the advent of robo umpires. Our robot overlords have finally taken over. We have an automated balls and strikes system that has been implemented throughout the minors for several years now. They're trying this out in Major League Baseball just in spring training. This is not going to happen into the regular season. They're testing it in spring training, which that's also an interesting way to implement it. I understand why they would do this only in spring training as a test and not just say we're going to have this in the majors right away. But it also, they're basically, Major League Baseball is asking the teams to do them a favor and use this system and either challenge balls and strikes or not. In fact, Terry Francona has told his Cincinnati Reds players not to challenge anything because it's not going to be implemented in the season. It doesn't do them any good to waste time thinking about it or maybe growing accustomed to it because it's not going to happen this year. So I kind of like that act of defiance by Francona. Say, fuck you, you're implementing this thing, but it's not real. So why would we bother doing you a favor? It started, you and I were watching, was it Dodgers Cubs game 1 of spring training?
Yeah.
It happened to be on MLB Network. So you and I were both watching it. And you had some questions about it right off the bat because it was confusing how they did it.
Yeah. And I mean, my question right off the bat was, well, one, I think I was out of the room, but when they were talking about the fact that they were actually doing it, which I was sitting there going, are they using ROBOUMP or not? Are they using ROBOUMP or not? And I must have just stepped out of the room. Then it happened. And
yeah, it was Cody Poteet, who was famously brought to the Cubs in the infamous Cody Bellinger trade. He's the first Major League player to challenge a call in this new ABS RoboUmp system. That's the part that probably wasn't explained very well. Or I didn't explain it very well. I don't think Major League Baseball necessarily explained it very well. It is not a fully implemented automated balls and strikes calls. The umpire is not getting a signal telling him whether to call a ball or a strike. Umpires are calling balls and strikes like they always have. It's just every pitch is being monitored by this ABS system. And if a pitcher, catcher, or batter wants to challenge the umpire's call, they can do so. They can do so infinitely if they get it right. But if you get 2 wrong, your challenges are used up for the entire game then. So you were confused because you thought that the umps were being told,
right,
a signal in their ear or whatever, saying it was a ball or a strike. But no, it was the Poteet that decided that the ump was wrong, which is, I think it's I actually like that. It kind of limits how much exposure to this system there is. But it's still the normal game until someone decides that something egregious happened, and at least you have the opportunity to challenge it. I don't know how much you've watched of spring training since. I've seen some Tigers games, saw a couple more Cubs games, but the thing that really perplexed me and how this is being implemented is, they actually show the fans in the stadium and as well as in the TV broadcast, the actual graphic that shows the strike zone and where if the ball hit that zone or not. And there's lots of interesting things about this strike zone. It looks very different to what you and I are used to seeing on ESPN or your local broadcast. You see the K zone, whatever. This is I assumed it would be a 3-dimensional zone that was like, it had the height, the depth, the shape of home plate in kind of a cube almost. And if the ball crossed in that cube anywhere, it would have to be a strike. But that was a erroneous thought by myself, because if you think about it, you could throw like a softball pitch straight up in the air, have it land directly on home plate, and that would be called a strike. And that's just not what they're looking for. It needs to come through the front of the zone, basically,
right.
Strike. So what they've done is literally, I think it's in the center of home plate, front to back, is this where this 2-dimensional sheet, basically, if the ball goes through that, it's a strike. The problem is, as we all know, the width of the strike zone is defined by the width of home plate. That's easy. the height of the zone is determined by the players. I think they call it the crook of the knee to the letters.
Yep.
And I mean, that's where baseball is. That's where the human element has come in. Is you rarely see a letter high fastball get called as a strike. It's usually around the belt. You think of as at least I do. But that changes for every batter. Obviously, as you see the pictures of the most extreme, when you see Jose Altuve standing next to oh my God, Yankees, Aaron Judge.
Aaron Judge, yeah.
Thanks for helping me there. If they were playing in the same game, they would have the exact same strike zone, which seems absurd to me. Like how is that possible? That I believe what they're doing is it changes every game. Like I've seen multiple games. I've seen a strike zone that it looks like like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, like a portrait. It's tall and narrow. The next game, the strike zone was wide and short, like you turned it to a landscape, and that was based on the average height of, I guess, the players that on the rosters that day for both teams. That just seems absurd to me. How could this strike zone not be malleable enough where it changes for every batter? They just measure, they see the crook of the knee, and they see where his letters or whatever they determine the top of the strike zone is. It should change for every batter. So it's absurd the way they're doing it. I hope that this experiment at least is pointing out how absurd it is. That strike zone is just not calibrated for every single player. It's like an average apparently. So I don't know. Have you seen any of that? The same things I'm seeing?
Yeah, I mean the graphics I've seen though have been very similar, like in the Sox game and in that and in the opening day game, the opening spring training game.
Yeah.
Where it's like it was like a pinkish square and they showed the ball where it hit, which it kind of reminded me of, it did a little bit remind me of like the box that is normally up on the screen, but it didn't have like it wasn't as defined as it, but the same kind of graphic was up when the White Sox did it. So I don't know if is it being left up to like local graphics departments?
That's another issue. It is definitely not. This is automated by Major League Baseball, and they're going to have to. It's called the Hawkeye system, which
that's
you and I were joking.
Tennis.
Yeah, we were joking back and forth. That actually, you're right. They use it in tennis. They also use it in NASCAR for things. I was joking, but I also wasn't joking. It is the Hawkeye system that is doing this, which is very different than ESPN's K Zone or whatever your local affiliate. However, they determine it. Their strike zones have nothing to do with this automated system. And that might be very frustrating when they really implement this, if those aren't calibrated to the same system, because your TV is telling you one thing, but then the automated ball strike system is telling you something totally different. So that's something else they're going to have to work out. But I can't believe they're not going to calibrate it for every single batter as they come up, because literally the way the strike zone has to be defined is that player's knees to their chest, not some average, or it can't be the same all game long, can't be the same all season long for every single player. It's got to be that player. So
I mean, I would just throw strikes at Tuve about head height. That's probably right in the strike zone. Yeah, no chance. 3 pitches. And then I'd argue each one when the ump calls it a ball. I'd be like, I don't know, check the video, buddy.
Well, that's what I do like about it, the challenge system. Instead of every single, if it was every single pitch, it'd be infuriating, I think, where you'd see those inconsistencies, where at least this would be limited. And if the ump keeps getting it wrong, at least there's some way for the aggrieved team to get justice and challenge it and get the right call made. So that part I really like, at least the philosophy. The execution has a long ways to go to be right. So I think if this is the best they could do after several years in the minor leagues, and we're now seeing it in the majors, they've got a long ways to go still to implement it.
So is it the same system in the minors?
This is the exact same system they've been using in at least AAA. They've been testing this. the way I've heard it described is AAA has had it for every single game for at least the last year. Right now, for the last several years, they do 6 game series. The first 3 games of the series are total ABS. The umpire is getting a signal in their ear or whatever to whether to call it a ball or a strike. Then the last 3 games of the series are this challenge system that we're seeing. I think what they've determined is why they're implementing this in spring training, the challenge system, is because the total ABS system is a disaster. It's just like it just doesn't look right, and I'm sure the umpires don't like it. Being told what to call. It seems overwrought and fraught with potential issues. So that's why I think the challenge system has graduated from AAA to the majors, at least in spring training. So it's our
Yeah,
best hope at this point, but
I
it's got a
think
ways to go.
I think you definitely start that way. I know, like, you know nothing about tennis, and I know nothing about NASCAR, which is
Yeah, it's perfect.
what our jokes were back and forth on our texting. But tennis is they had so many. These line judges make so many missed calls that
I
they've
have,
basically moved
yeah.
completely to ball hawk, except for like the French Open and Wimbledon. But those are gonna, by next year, I think there won't be any human line judges. They have a recorded voice that calls them out.
Do you like, as a viewer, do you like the automated system for
I
tennis?
do. It does have flaws though. Like, it'll
Okay.
call something out, and occasionally they will replay it and it'll actually be in.
The, the,
And
the
it takes it.
huge the huge difference for tennis, at least compared to baseball, you have finite lines. Those
Yeah, it's
lines
not
do not
dimensional.
move. Yeah. Where the upper and lower part of the strike zone is not finite for every batter. It's different. So
Exactly.
so if you can't even get it 100% correct in tennis, where things aren't changing, there's no dynamics to it. It's a fucking line. And I have seen the graphics. I don't know how I've seen it because I don't watch tennis, but it is very precise. It shows you here the ball hit this part. I think it shows a shadow
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
on it. So I'm familiar with it, but I'm kind of shocked to hear that it's not 100% accurate even with the finite dimensions. So I could also see why tennis needs it more than anything, because the ball's going at 140 miles an hour at times. So
Yeah. Yeah.
how could a
Crazy.
lines person necessarily see exactly what's going on?
So,
That's
especially
fascinating.
especially those guys keep those fucking jobs forever. Like, the umpires are way too fucking old to be out there calling balls in and out. They can probably barely see.
Yeah, and the good ones are fucking gambling on games and getting kicked out of the,
Right.
of the league. So Jesus Christ.
Word Hole Media.